One down, 16 to go as we kick off the 2025 NFL season. And the Eagles start in the plus column in what was a wild and crazy season opener against the Dallas Cowboys. Hi, everybody. I'm Derrick Gunn, and welcome to a new, fresh edition on here inside the Birds. We call it Birds Weekly. And I am pleased, honored, and excited to be talking some Eagles football this season with a longtime friend, a man I've respected for decades and had a pleasure of working with for many years, the one and only Hall of Famer, Ray Didinger. Ray, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, Derrick. How are you doing?
Good, man. Hey, the first thing I got to ask you is, with that hour, 5-minute lightning delay, did you stay up and watch the entire game?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Did you?
I did. I was amazed when I found out the next day how many people told me that they went to bed during the rain delay. I mean, I don't know how you do that. Nobody likes to sit through a 1-hour rain delay, but I wasn't going to walk out. I wasn't going to walk away from that game. Not with all the stuff that had happened up to that point. I mean, anything could happen. So I hung with it to the end. I did.
All right, Ray. Let's get the elephant out of the room. And of course, everybody was talking about how the game ended and so many different elements of the game. But one of the biggest stories coming out of the game happened before the first play of the game with Jalen Carter spitting on Dak Prescott. Now, as we got further along in the game, we saw video where Dak spat first towards the ground, he says, which basically baited Jalen into spitting on his jersey. Ray, I don't care how you describe it. That is one of the most vile things you can ever do, is to spit on somebody. And I have to ask you, what was your initial thoughts when the announcement came down, Jalen Carter has been ejected from the game?
I was not surprised. Yeah. I was not surprised because I knew that the NFL every year sends out, before the season begins, before training camp begins, they send out what constitutes kind of a memo to the officials, the teams, the executives, and the coaches about things that are going to be points of emphasis this year. Yep. And this year was all about sportsmanship and respecting your opponent and all that kind of stuff. So they were really going to crack down on taunting and all those kinds of things. And so knowing that was sort of the backdrop to this whole thing, I thought, when I saw the flag go up, I said, this isn't just going to be a penalty. I think this is going to be an ejection. And now, obviously, it changes the game dramatically at that point when you lose your best defensive player. And you can try to rationalize what Carter did and the fact that he was clearly baited into this by the veteran, which he was. There's no doubt that that's exactly what Dak was doing. But still, you got to be smarter than that. And, the more I thought about it, Derrick, what it kind of said to me, and I want to hear your take on this. That Eagles defense, they have lost in the last couple of years. They've lost a lot. They've got good players there for sure, but they've lost a lot of veteran leadership, and if there had been a Fletcher Cox there, if there had been a Brandon Graham there, if there had been a Darius Slay there, somebody would have seen Carter and Dak face to face there during that injury timeout. And that veteran, I think, would have gone over and grabbed him by the arm and said, hey, what are you doing? What are you talking to him for? Get back over here. Get back to our huddle. But I think what you've got now is you got so many so much youth on that defense now. Ojomo, DeJean, Mitchell, Hunt. Who's going to do that? I mean, who's the veteran guy when you're looking at a situation and you say, oh, this isn't good, and go over and take your best player, get him by the arm and say, come on, get over here. I think that was a case where the youth of that defense, there was nobody there that felt like that they had the currency to go over and tell Jalen Carter, knock it off, let's get over here. I think the more I thought about it, I thought that having so many young players over there and they know what was going on, but nobody wanted to take the initiative. If somebody had, I think a Graham, a Cox, or somebody could have averted the whole thing.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I asked that very question on our post-game podcast the other night on the Seth Joyner YouTube channel with Seth and Mark Varzetta. I don't know who a leader is on their defense right now. You know, they talked on the game broadcast about this is the youngest starting defense now in the National Football League. And with that said, who do you turn to in a crunch time? Who do you turn to when things get out of control like that? Who is a player that the other players will respect the most? Who will be the most verbal on that side of the football? Is it Cooper DeJean? Don't know. Is it Quinyon Mitchell? I don't see that leadership in him yet. Not to say it won't emerge somewhere down the road. Jordan Davis, I don't see that in them yet. You know,
you could say Zach Bond. Except he's only in year 2.
Yeah.
I mean, Carter's been an Eagle even longer than he has.
Yeah.
So I don't know that he felt like he was in a position to do that. But I think I never really, we made it, in fact, during preseason, we made a point of saying how young this defense was. And what a good thing that was, because they had so much speed and they had so much athletic ability on that side of the ball, which is all true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all true. But there's something to be said for that leadership, you know, and okay, who is that guy now?
Yeah.
Because I think you saw the other night that was a situation where one strong leader over there could have diffused the whole situation. It didn't happen. But you know what? Moving forward, these next 16 games, they're going to have to find it somewhere.
Yeah. As we sit here and talk about this, Ray, the only definitive leadership that can get in Jalen Carter's ear, because let's face it, he is considered somewhat of a loose cannon. The only definitive leadership that can get in his ear is on the sidelines. Big Dom, Nick Sirianni. That's it. And, you know, and maybe Fangio, but they're all on the sideline. They're not on the field.
Right.
So I don't know if there's a player on the field that can corral him. Now, after the game, he apologized. He said it will never happen again. It never should have happened. And luckily, this learning tool happened in game 1 and not a playoff game or another trip to the Super Bowl. So luckily you get this out of the way now. Now Jalen Hurts said he talked to him after the game, but you know, I don't know what kind of vocal influence Jalen has in that locker room. He is the leader, yes. And we see him after the game, cheering on the guys after winning the locker room with a post-game speech, very low-key post-game speech, I might add, compared to other coaches and other players we see giving speeches after a big win. But I don't know, outside of the 3 people I mentioned, that there's anybody else right now that can bend his ear and to get him to listen attentively. Right.
Now, a learning experience for him for sure. But I mean, they're going to have to address this now. Because it kind of carried over, you know, I mean, all the scuffling after whistles. I mean, there were a couple of times when I thought the officials were going to throw a flag because there's a lot of after the whistle stuff going on. But even at that, the Eagles had 93 yards in penalties in the first half.
Yes.
In the first half, they didn't have that many penalties in a single game last year.
Yeah.
So that's something that they're going to have to rein in. You know, when I was on WIP this week, the day after the game, obviously everybody's talking about this.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, I've been around this game long enough that I was covering the league in the 70s.
Sure.
I was covering this league when Mean Joe Green came along.
Mm.
And I'm going right into your wheelhouse as a Pittsburgh Steeler guy.
Yeah.
But when Joe came up, it was a great player right from the jump. I mean, everybody knew that. And in a lot of ways, I will tell you this, Derek, in a lot of ways, Jalen Carter reminds me of Joe Green. In a lot of ways, he has a lot of the similar strengths. His game's very similar. But when Joe came up the first couple of years, and it was partly because the Steelers were so bad and frustration was sort of baked into it. But Joe was playing out of control, and there was a game where he spit in the face of Fran Tarkenton. There was a game where there was a scuffle on the sidelines. He spit on Dick Butkus. There was another game played at Franklin Field where he got so frustrated about being held by the Eagles and the officials not throwing the flag that he picked the ball up and threw it into the upper deck at Franklin Field. Gets ejected again. So this is becoming like a pattern there. And finally, Chuck Noll, the coach, called him into the office and he said, "Listen, Joe, you're the leader on this team." And Joe said, "I don't want to be leader." No, he said, "That doesn't matter. What you want doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, you're the best player. You're the guy everybody looks at. You're the leader. The only question that the only thing that you have to decide now is moving forward, are you going to be a good leader or a bad leader? Are you a guy that's going to help make this team better, or are you the guy that's going to be destructive? He said, you have to decide that, because you can say, I don't want to be a leader, but it doesn't matter. As the best player, you're going to be that anyway. You just have to decide what kind of leader you're going to be. And I remember I was doing a book on the Steelers, and Joe told me that story. And he said, that moment, that conversation with Chuck was the turning point of my career. That was when I understood that just being good wasn't good enough. There's a maturity part of the game that you have to also have. And he said, that's when I embraced that. That's when I became a leader on the team. And that's when they went on and they won 4 Super Bowls. And I think that Jalen Carter has just a world of talent and a chance to be a player in that strata. But he has to learn what Joe Green learned, which is maturity is a big part of the equation. And what you saw on Thursday night was a total lack of maturity.
Well, as the masses now debate what happens to Carter beyond penalty, suspension, it's like you're sitting on the fence, because a lot of people say basically just a fine. Some people say he should be suspended for a game at the very minimum. Where do you sit?
I can guarantee you this, that suspension is on the table.
Yeah.
They're talking about this. They were talking about this up on Park Avenue first thing Friday morning, debating it. And there were probably some people up there, in light of the fact that they're on this big sportsmanship thing, that are arguing that here's a chance right from week 1 to send a message about we're not tolerating this anymore, and suspend them. Suspend the best defensive player on the Super Bowl champion. That's a message that will resonate across all 32 teams. However, I don't think it's going to come to that. Maybe it will, because I'm sure there's some people that are calling for it. I think it's just going to come down as a very, very stern letter from the commissioner and a hefty fine. But I don't think there's going to be a suspension, because let's face it, it's not like he got thrown out during the game.
Right.
He's already been suspended for a game.
That's right.
That's what it amounts to. So I think that they will deem that sufficient for what it was. They will warn him, they will fine him, but I don't see him being suspended. Could it happen? It could, but I don't expect that.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards a suspension only because of what you had mentioned off the top, and we discussed this the other night. The fact that the NFL is putting such an emphasis now on unsportsmanlike conduct, trying to clean up the game to a certain degree, they may use this to make an example out of Jalen Carter. What better way to get a player's attention than to take a paycheck from him? And I don't disagree with you, because there is no right or wrong to this answer in terms of, do you fine him heavily, let him keep playing, do you suspend him? There is no right or wrong, but I see where you're coming from. I've talked to a lot of people who have your same view, and I've talked to people who have the other view. And I just think that the NFL, for some reason, I've always had this notion that the NFL doesn't like the Philadelphia Eagles for some reason, first and foremost. And secondly, I think they're going to use this as an opportunity to possibly suspend him. Of course, we sit and we wait to find out. All right, let's talk a little football. And we got to start with Jalen Hurts. And Ray, when I look at the performance he had in that season opener against the Dallas Cowboys, the first word that comes to mind is flawless. 19 of 23, 150 plus yards, ran for 60 more, used his legs to basically keep Dallas off balance, ran for a couple of touchdowns. It's flawless and accurate description of what you watched Jalen Hurts go through against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I thought so. But you know what else it is, Gunnar?
Yeah.
There are those, and we're living in a different age of football now.
Right,
where
correct.
Everything is so number driven and stat driven and analytic driven, and to some degree fantasy football driven, that sometimes so much is built into the numbers that's how people, all of that offseason talk about where does Jalen Hurts rank? Is he in the top 5? Is he 10th? Is he 12th? Is he 8th among the quarterbacks? A lot of that is numbers driven, and people make those determinations based on how many yards he threw for, how many touchdown passes he threw. But what you saw on Thursday night was just the definition of who Jalen Hurts is.
Yes.
if that's what you want, if you want a fantasy quarterback who's going to throw for 1,000,000 yards and 1,000,000 touchdowns, then he's not your guy. He's just not, because he's never going to play that game. But if you want a quarterback that's going to do the things that you have to have done to win, when it's all said and done, to just win the game, that's what he's about. He's a master at the art of winning. And you saw that the other night. 150 yards. I mean, tomorrow, you're going to have 12 guys in the league that are going to throw for 300 yards. They're going to throw for twice that. 0 touchdown passes. But does it really matter? I mean, every time you needed him to step up and make a big play in this game, he did it. Yep. I mean, he runs for the 2 touchdowns, creates those plays off script because neither one of them were called up that way. And then, he throws the absolutely perfect ball to Dotson that sets up the drive that leads to the Barkley touchdown. Yep. So, I mean, all of those plays that helped the Eagles win that game were plays that he made. And you don't see them all on the stat sheet, but they were all over the scoreboard. And that's the kind of player that Jalen Hurts is, and I think will always be.
You know what, Ray, when people ask me, where do you rank Jalen? You know what I tell them nowadays? I don't care where he ranks. The bottom line is he gets the W's more than he takes an L. And I guarantee you there's at least 10 teams right now in the National Football League that would love to have a Jalen Hurts under center for them, because he doesn't turn the ball over. He's not going to put up gaudy numbers, but he beats you with his overall athleticism. He frustrates a defense with his overall athleticism. And there are quarterbacks who are similar to him, i.e. a Lamar Jackson, quarterbacks like that can beat you with their legs or their arm, but they're not the finishers that a Jalen is. And I'll take that finisher every time. In today's brand of football, I'll take that finisher. Will he ever be, again, maybe considered an MVP? I don't think so, based on just the numbers. You look at Josh Allen, won it last year, with the gaudy numbers he put up. I don't know if Jalen will ever be considered an MVP candidate again, but so what? If he keeps putting up W's, if he gets the Eagles 1 or 2 more Super Bowl titles, do you think anybody in Philadelphia cares whether or not he's an MVP of the league? I don't. To be honest.
And nor should they. I mean, I think that is what it's all about. And I don't know how, you and I didn't talk after the game.
Right.
But, I thought watching him play on Thursday night, God, I thought he ran well.
Yes.
I mean, he looked to me like he was running a couple years ago. He looked faster. Yeah. I thought he ran harder. He was more decisive in his running. Like he made up his mind, I'm going, and he went. A couple of years ago, over the last couple of years, and I think as the year went on and he took more hits and stuff, he didn't have that same acceleration when he made the decision to run. Right. I thought one of the things I took away from Thursday night is, boy, he looked fast. Yes. And when he decided to run, he was running like he did a couple of years ago, which was I thought a real positive. That one touchdown run where he gets around the outside and then he sees that lane open up. Yeah. That acceleration that he had there, I hadn't seen that in the last year or two, but I sure saw it Thursday night.
A couple of times, though, the only thing that concerns me, Ray, is when he got close to the sidelines, how he was pushed out of bounds. And, of course, one time he went a little bit further than he should have and ran into some camera guy on the sidelines. Those are the kind of instances where players get hurt. And I'd hate to see that happen. And let's face it, their defenses and defensive coordinators are the mindset. If you give them a little extra shove, hey, you get them out of there, we'll take the penalty. We'll take that penalty. You're not deliberately trying to hurt somebody, but you give them a little extra shove. Hey, you know what? So be it. We can say adrenaline took over.
That's true. There are a couple of things that I thought of when watching the game. A couple of things that I didn't think the Eagles were going to have this season, but they have, and I'm glad they have them. Okay. One of them is Dallas Goedert.
Yeah. At
the end of last season, there was so much talk about, he's 30 now. He's missed a lot of games. He tends to get hurt. Maybe it's time to move on. I mean, I really thought for a stretch in this offseason, more likely than not, he was not going to be back, which, I mean, I disagreed with that. I thought it would be a mistake to let him go because I thought he was really a valuable player and a good player. But nope, they made the decision. They brought him back. He agreed to the deal. He came back. And the other thing was, so I didn't think he was going to be here, but he was. And I'm glad they had him Thursday night because he played very well again. Yeah. The other thing was, I didn't think that they'd have the tush push. I really thought the league was going to take that out of the playbook. I really did. When they had the vote and it stayed and it didn't get overturned, I was surprised. I was genuinely surprised because all the people I talked to around the league in the days leading up to the vote,
sure,
it seemed to indicate that the Packers and the teams that wanted to get rid of it had the votes, and so there was a time there in the offseason where I thought the Eagles aren't going to have Goddard this year, and they're not going to have the tush push.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had them both Thursday night, and guess what? They were pretty important in winning that game.
Absolutely. And Ray, as we look at this Eagles offense, you knew the Dallas Cowboys were going to do everything possible to take Saquon out of this game. I think it's going to be a concerted effort up and down the schedule this year. Take Saquon out of the game. Do not let Saquon beat you. And, of course, he had 18 carries, 60 yards. He had the 10-yard touchdown run. But I think we're going to see a little bit more wide-open Eagles offense based on necessity, because teams – it started with Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Teams are not going to let Saquon just run up and down the field like they did in 2024.
Right, and you know that, and you knew that, and you saw the first evidence of it on Thursday night. And look, I don't think the Cowboys are a particularly great defensive team.
Yeah,
but they set up their defense with the pure idea that they weren't going to let Barkley dominate the game, and they were able to do that. But football is a game of give and take. We all know that.
Yep.
And okay, if you're going to play, fine. If you want to play that way, you can play that way. But you're giving up something on the back end. And the Eagles are going to have to find a way to, if that's the way teams are going to play us, okay. And they kind of have to, because they know the threat that Barkley represents.
Yep.
So, okay, they're going to play that way. Now, how can we turn that to our advantage? How can we create opportunities in the passing game with our playmakers, the other playmakers, to take advantage of that? And, to me, that's kind of where that's kind of your, if you're the defensive team, that's kind of your catch-22. If we want to come out and we want to play that way, we're going to create and allow some things in the passing game, which could wind up hurting us in the long run. If we want to play zone, if we want to play a zone thing and play the don't let any get anything deep, you can work with Goddard and the other receivers underneath, combination routes, even Barkley in the flat, and move the ball that way. If they want to play press, if they want to play jam and they want to play man-to-man, fine, let them do that too. Because once they start playing man-to-man and you run them down the field, then that opens up the lane for Barkley to break the line of scrimmage and run right up their back. So I don't know that there's any really one good way to shut down an offense that has this many weapons.
I agree.
I think you're going to see from week to week that teams are going to take this approach, and they're going to say, all right, we can't let Barkley beat us. We're going to do what we have to do to stop him, and we'll just take our chances. Well, I think over time they'll find out that's not a winning strategy either.
If you had told me, hey Gunner, I'll bet you $100 that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith will have less than 25 yards receiving combined, I'd take that bet 100 days a year, to be honest with you. Lo and behold, they combined for 4 catches for 24 yards. How shocked were you? I mean, I understand taking away Saquon is one thing, but I thought for sure those two would be involved a lot more than they were in the passing game.
Yeah, I thought so too. You certainly never expect that. you certainly never expect those two guys to have a combined less than 25 yards. That may never happen again. It probably should never happen again. And the other thing is, you never expect A.J. Brown to get his first target after the 2-minute warning. And those are things that probably shouldn't happen again. But, it's first week of the season. None of those guys played the preseason.
Yeah.
And frankly, Brown and Smith hardly practiced this summer. If you went to, so I think they're still working through some things. But after what I saw last night with the Chiefs, I think the Eagles have the opportunity to throw the ball very successfully against the Chiefs. I mean, you look at the way Justin Herbert was, on that final drive, when he's 8 for 8, just bing, 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 bing. Yeah. Those throws are there based on the way the Kansas City secondary, especially the safeties, are playing. And, I could see the Eagles coming out this week and throwing the ball more, and certainly throwing the ball more effectively than they did on Thursday night.
I don't like to give the Dallas Cowboys credit for anything, as much as we hate the Dallas Cowboys in this area. And especially after the shocking trade of sending Micah Parsons to Green Bay. I thought they would come in here mentally on edge, mentally down. They had to endure the fans at this stadium, one of the loudest stadiums in the National Football League, the banner being dropped, and CeeDee Lamb has said, I want to stand out there and watch it as motivation. I'm going to stand out there and watch this as motivation. And, dare I say, Ray, even though the Cowboys lost, they might be a better team than a lot of us anticipated going into this season.
Yeah, well, having Dak makes a difference. I mean, a lot of Eagles fans were saying, "Oh, we killed the Cowboys twice last year. Look at the scores of those." Yeah, but they didn't have Prescott, and I know the people here don't want to give him any credit, and that's the way it's been with Cowboy quarterbacks going back to Meredith, for God's sakes. But the fact is that he is good, and his career record against the Eagles is a good one. And how good are the Cowboys going to be moving forward? I don't know. I mean, I kind of thought the way you thought. I kind of felt that what went down with Parsons and the way it went down was going to have a demoralizing effect on the players. I mean, you just let your best player, I mean, your difference-making all-pro player walk. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of felt like, okay, maybe there's a one-night circle the wagons kind of, we're going to show you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And because that's kind of what you saw the other night. I thought the Cowboys played hard on Thursday night. Now, can you sustain that over 17 weeks? I don't know. I mean, their offensive line isn't what it was. That's for sure. The defense, I think, without Parsons is a lot weaker. And I kind of think that the Cowboys are going to be, at best, a 500 team this year. I don't see them being much better than that. Mm-hmm. But I thought they did play hard the other night. I just don't know that they're going to be able to play that way for the course of a whole season.
Hey, another aspect that really stood out about this Eagles offense was the fact that, it made us cringe last season. This team couldn't score points on opening drives and in the first half. In this game, 3 first-half possessions, 3 touchdowns. What did you think of Kevin Patullo's play calling?
I thought it was really good.
Okay.
I thought it was really good. And the thing I was really looking for was the communication from the sideline to the huddle. How quick were the plays coming in? Did there seem to be a lot of standing around? Did there seem to be a lot of sort of uncertainty? Because a lot of times you see that with first-time coordinators. I mean, they've been in the offense. They've been in the meeting rooms. They know all the plays. But calling them on the fly like that, while the game's going on and the clock is ticking and the crowd's cheering. I mean, I've seen a lot of first-time offensive coordinators, almost choke the way players choke in terms of what are we going to call? What are we going to call? When do I get the play in? Wait, taking too long. Quarterback doesn't have enough time at the line of scrimmage to the adjustments he wants, wasting timeouts. Those are all the things that are the Eagles going to fall victim to any? Are you going to see any of that? And I didn't. I mean, they looked really, really efficient there. So the communication part of it between Patullo and Hurts, it seems like they've already got that worked out. And now once these guys get a chance to play together some more, once Brown and Smith get into the offense more after having really done nothing in the preseason, I think from week to week you're going to see it get better. And let's face it, the way the schedule lays out, it's going to have to. Because these next few games you're going to be playing teams that are better than this team.
Absolutely.
I mean, Kansas City, for whatever you want to say about where they are right now, and they lose that game and all that stuff, Kansas City is still Kansas City. Mm-hmm. The Rams are still a good team that have a lot to prove, and they're certainly working on double revenge with the 2 games they lost last year. Mm-hmm. Then you got the Bucs down there, which is always a tough game for the Eagles. And then nobody's talking about the game after that, but I think Denver's really good.
I agree.
So, I think you worked through some things against the Cowboys. There are obviously things they can do better. But I think moving forward now, they have a better idea of what they're going to be and what they have to do. And they're going to have to, because these next 4 games are going to be tougher than the game they just played.
Defensively, this young Eagles defense, it had some kinks in the armor in the first half, settled in the second half, even with the rain and lightning delay, settled in the second half, held Dallas to no second half points. But the one glaring weakness, Ray, Adoree Jackson ain't it. It ain't it. I'm sorry. He was getting torched early on. He took him out of the game. He came back in the game later. But I don't know how you fix this problem. There's very little out there in the open market. The first name that comes to mind to me was Asante Samuel Jr. I don't know how you fix that problem. I thought Keely Ringo would win that position. That didn't happen. They brought Adoree in later, and all of a sudden he emerges as your starting corner opposite Quinyon Mitchell. And we got a problem on that side because as we face some of the better quarterbacks and teams that you just mentioned, if he's out there, those teams are going back on that side of the field time and time again.
Yeah, they're going to find number 8. I mean, that's for sure. And we talked about that during the preseason. That okay, where all the players you have to replace on defense. Excuse me.
Bless you.
All the players you have to replace on defense. Will they be able to do it? And my biggest concern was the secondary. My biggest concern was the corner opposite Mitchell and the safety, the other safety next to Blankenship. Who's going to replace Gardner Johnson? One weekend, I'm still wondering. I think that I agree with you, and I felt like you did, that it was going to be Ringo. And they gave him the first shot at it.
Yep.
I think they thought he was going to be that guy. They gave him every opportunity to win the job, and frankly, he didn't do it.
No.
Adoree Jackson was really kind of just a fallback position, and they put him in there because they didn't feel Ringo was ready. But every time Vic Fangio met the press and Adoree Jackson's name came up, you kind of saw the way Vic answered it. He just says, "Well, he's the guy for now." But listen, they didn't bring Jacorius Bennett in here for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they not only did they acquire him, but they told him to get on a red-eye flight.
Yeah.
So now what does that tell you? Okay. I really think that, and I know he played very little the other night and actually got an interference penalty, but I think we're not going to be too much deeper into the season that he's going to get a shot at that job. I really think.
Wow. All right. We're going to wait and see. Yeah. Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis played the most snaps of his young career, 53 snaps, 87% of the snaps. And Ray, I thought he might have had one of his best games, if not the best game of his young career against the Cowboys. I mean, he was collapsing the pocket. He was getting pressure. He was stuffing a run. With Jalen Carter out of there, I think he elevated his role and elevated his play overall.
I agree. I really agree. And, I've always been a Jordan Davis guy.
Yeah.
From when they drafted him, I saw him play at Georgia. I knew what a good player he was. I was really happy when the Eagles got him where they got him. And I know there were a lot of people were saying, I know he's been a bit disappointment. We thought he was going to be better than this. He's not playing a lot of snaps. And, there was a lot of sort of grumbling about him over a couple of years. And I didn't really see it. I mean, I thought that he played well. I really did. Now, did he have to get in better condition, get a little more stamina, play more snaps? Oh, yeah. I mean, I agreed with that. But the idea that he was some kind of an underachiever, I didn't think that at all. And The other night, when you really needed him the other night. I mean, when Carter gets tossed out of the game, I mean, he had to play a ton. And I think it told me a lot this offseason he lost 35 pounds. That's not easy to do. And you have to work at that to make that happen. And he did. A year ago, I don't know that he could have played that many snaps. He played them the other night and played them well. And I agree with you. I thought he played a good game. And that pairing of those two guys together, they could be very good together. Yes. I mean, two guys with that level of ability, that young, they could be very strong on the inside with those two guys. Everybody talks about Carter, but don't forget about Davis. I mean, he's a really good player in his own right.
Zach Vaughn picked up from where he left off a season ago. I thought he was excellent in coverage, excellent sideline to sideline and tracking down running plays. And I think he may have made the defensive play of the game when he tracked down Miles Sanders, the former Eagle, on their 49-yard run. He tried to punch the ball out initially. A lot of times we see that. You try to punch the ball out, the would-be tackler loses the balance, and the runner keeps running and scores a touchdown. That might have been the game-winning touchdown the way that game played itself out, Ray. But Zach Vaughn made an incredible play to keep Miles from getting to the end zone. Lo and behold, a few plays later, Miles coughs up the football. Eagles get the momentum right back for them. I don't think we talk about Zach Vaughn's leadership, maybe verbal leadership, but his physical playing leadership is second to none on that team.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, he's a really, and you can see it, he's a really heady player. He really knows the defense, knows his responsibilities, knows exactly where everybody's supposed to be. And his recognition, his ability to recognize right away whether it's by formation or motion or whatever it is, where the ball's going. I mean, he's moving before as the ball snapped, he's moving right where it's going. And you can coach guys forever, and if they don't have instinct, they don't have instinct. You can coach guys all you want, but there are certain guys that are great players because they have an instinct for an ability to recognize what's happening. Ask them how. They can't tell you how, but they feel it, they see it, they know it, and that was what Vic saw in Vaughn last year. I mean, when they brought him in, honestly, they didn't have any bigger role for him in mind than what he had in New Orleans. I mean, they thought he would be a situation pass rusher kind of guy and a core special teams player. But that was it. I mean, they didn't bring him in here with the idea that he was going to be an off-the-ball linebacker who was going to go to the Pro Bowl. I mean, they didn't really think that. But, I mean, once Vic studied the tape, he said, I think we can do a lot more with this guy. And once they gave him the opportunity, he showed you what he could be. Anybody that saw him play at Wisconsin knew he was a really good player. Right. I mean, you knew that this guy had a lot of skill. I mean, he was the third-round draft pick. He was not exactly a sleeper. So people knew how good a player he was. But, he goes to New Orleans, and they just didn't see it. They just didn't give him that opportunity, which is why the Saints are the Saints. They can bring in a player who like that and then never let him do what he's capable of doing. Correct. Well, the Eagles brought him in and gave him that opportunity. And the guy winds up being a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. And I think what he showed you Thursday night was anybody that thought that like last year was, that was just, that he was just lucky, or that was one year. I think what you saw the other night is what you saw last year is the genuine article. I mean, that's the kind of player this guy is. And he's really good. The other thing that came out of Thursday's game was I thought Jahad Campbell looked really good. I mean, no question. As your first round draft pick, I mean, Gunner, for a big man, boy, he can move.
Yes, he can.
I mean, some of the stuff he did in coverage. I mean, covering a receiver down the seam with his size. I think with each week you're going to see him just get better and better. I think the Eagles were very, very fortunate to get him with the 31st pick because I think he played well Thursday night, but I think he's going to have impact week to week.
It's funny. The Eagles have had a stroke of luck in recent drafts with getting quality players in the lower part of the initial draft. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Now this guy. They've really got a lucky rabbit's foot upon them. Now we do agree they need to address. Yeah, exactly. We do agree they need to address their cornerback position, and obviously they felt they needed to address some more pressure from the edge. They go out and sign 32-year-old Za'DariusSmith, who last year, with combined with Detroit and Cleveland, had 9 QB sacks, but he's 32 years old. Can he be a stabilizing factor coming off the edge for this defense?
I think so. I think they recognized with losing Sweat and losing BG and losing BG, they needed to fortify the edge. They needed to find somebody else, a couple more guys that could give them that edge pressure. And Uche and Ojare, I think that those signings, that's what they were supposed to be. I think they brought those guys in with the idea that veteran guys, they're edge players. They'll be part of that rotation. Right. And I don't think they saw it. I don't think they got from them this summer what they were hoping to get from them. And if you watched them, and they played some, it isn't like they weren't playing. They played some. What you're looking for in those guys, the edge players, is the ability to win, to win off the edge, to beat that blocker and win those snaps. And I know it's only preseason, but even in practice, they didn't seem to be winning it, And I think they were a little concerned about that. They didn't talk about it much, but, Ojare didn't even dress the other night. So there's an indication there that, okay, I think we're fine. Smith is going to be a good player. We've got those guys, but I think we need a little more depth. And maybe now we'll bring Smith in and see what he can give us, because they need that other guy. They need that other pass rusher. And Smith is, listen, the guy's moved around. I think he's played for everybody in the league now. I think the Eagles complete the cycle. I think he's now worn every jersey. And there's usually a reason for that. But the one skill he's always had is his ability to rush the passer.
Yep.
So you take that guy, you bring him in here at this point in his career, you put him on a team like this where you realistically think you have a shot at winning a Super Bowl. Yeah, I think you'll get the best of what he's got, and what he's got is something that you need.
All right, one game down, one game in the plus column, and hopefully the first of many, many, many more wins to come as the Eagles continue on this journey of trying to repeat as Super Bowl champions. This has been our maiden voyage of Birds Weekly, presented by Inside the Birds Network. For Ray Didinger, I'm Derrick Gunn. So long, everybody.